Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, I watched the debate with Brother Hijab on Piers Morgan with the rabbi. And what I liked about that debate was how both those minds came together and wouldn't let each other dominate the other. And I think this made a lot of energy. And what I mean by that is Brother Mohammed Hijab was funny, firm, explicit, and knew when to be like, this, and that, and then knew when to go on the offensive. So he knew how to balance the offense and defense rhetoric strategy when it comes to primetime television. And even though they had these moments where they're going over each other, the passion was entertaining, and I'm glad it happened. Even though, Piers jumping in and they had that quite annoying buzzer, it still was something where you saw fearlessness. And it's nice to have the styles of different dawah in the realm. And what I further liked was how they chose a very loudmouthed rabbi to go against a very firm, educated Muslim. Instead of having like a very soft, pacifist Muslim, and then a very kind of Riddler rabbi or something like that who wouldn't really get to the questions. And I think both of them raised good points. And I feel like Brother Mohammed Hijab won the exchange with the limits that he had, right? Both of them had limits. It should have gone on longer, I mean, that's what some of these people don't understand, is that they cut them off, but let them have at it, because we need to hear unfiltered opinions, because so many people are strawmanning the Muslim and Palestinian positions to the point where it is leading to this sort of tense narrative. For example, I commented something very normal on Charlie Kirk's post, and immediately Instagram flagged it as spam. Like within 20 seconds, and it was like, this isn't spam. Like, it was my first comment of the day. But whenever you comment on Dan Crenshaw and people like that, so if you have like a Islamic profile picture, you're identified Muslims, you can get censored really easy. So people are not really getting to voice their opinions as much, and having to create endless sock accounts just to post basic things, because of how YouTube and Instagram are seriously punishing any expression of that, because so many people are getting their jobs held hostage. They can't speak out. I mean, for example, Ben Shapiro's punishing Candace Owens for quoting the Bible and calling for a ceasefire. So think about that. Like, these people are super dedicated to what they want, as in to not have a ceasefire and have only one state, and to basically win the war and end it once and for all. And so people rightly are pointing out there's a lot of casualties in the way. And if you want people to hear the truth from both sides and how they verbalize it, you have to let people have unfiltered conversations on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook, but I imagine it's a hellscape since it's both owned by Zuckerberg. They're not able to voice that, right? And so Brother Mohammed Hijab is like the lion in the fight that we need, because I know, I'm not going to call anyone's names, but there are people who don't want to make content because supposedly, now I can't verify this because I'm not in the loop, kind of boycotted in a way, but people talk about the UAE and nations that want to normalize relations with Israel. if you get caught talking about Palestine too much, they kind of put you on a blacklist and you can lose your speaking opportunities and whatnot. And that it can cause people to see you as an extremist and a fundamentalist, and then they don't want to work with you. You know, there seems to be a political edge to, do you speak how you feel behind closed doors, or do you blatantly and boldly declare where you stand, right? So that's why we have people like Mohammed Hijab who are so unapologetically against what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And I've spoken out a lot, and I've tried to do a lot of creative posts. I'm shadow banned already on YouTube, so it doesn't really do much. It's not like I break the community guidelines or whatever, but I still, you know, make content and do poetic posts and find inspiration where and how I can. And I encourage others to do that, but it's nice when you have someone who's more of a masculine fighter defending those who can't defend themselves in Palestine, right? So it's a good thing. It's a very good thing when we have someone like him going on mainstream television and popping that bubble, because people underestimate how some of the dinosaur media is still watched by a lot of boomers and older generations in America, and it's good for them to hear the other side. It's good for them to hear people go into a verbal match. And I know that the ex-Muslim, they are enjoying the new subscribers they're getting for being, you know, Zionist shills. But they're going to criticize Mohammed Hijab no matter what he does because they dislike him so. And they're going to make up lies and try to slander what he did. But we have to support him and be united. Quite firmly, I'd argue. Because there aren't many people who are going to risk as much as Brother Mohammed Hijab has risked. And I respect that. I respect somebody who goes and says what they believe and defend it. That's admirable in today's age where there's so much fakery. And Mohammed Hijab also had a lot of witty, clever humor in there. And the fact that that rabbi has some business investments and things that are around adult stuff, I found the jokes that Mohammed Hijab to be a potent slap. I remember the hadith that said about biting the penis of your father. And I just kind of thought about that. I don't know the grade of it, because Muslims, some people get very angry about the hadith. But when I first read the hadith, I laughed. But I know we're supposed to have the best manners, but sometimes if you're too much of a pacifist, you become a carpet. I think you can be a very firm person with maintaining your position and not always cowering in fear. And I did like how he refused to shake the guy's hand, because I think there's too much handshaking, to be honest. And when you look at Brother Mohammed Hijab, how he put his neck on the line for all of us Muslims, he was our representative at that time. You have to kind of tip your hat to him, I'd call it. Because there are a lot of Muslims who, they won't even make a 10-minute video. And there are people who will grift off the Palestinians' death, so we don't want to be grifters, right? We don't want to use their cause in order to gain followers. But you also want to make sure that you realize that we have to help in any way we can, and your voice, and if you have a platform, should be used to help those suffering people. I mean, the images of the children alone will stick in our minds. And right now, Mohammed Hijab is the person who we shall gather around, right? And he isn't just being selfish. Like a lot of people, like, well, I'm just gonna focus on this, and that. I'll make one small post and hopefully YouTube won't punish me, and then, that'll be sufficient. And I'm not saying you have to talk about Palestine every day. But I feel like those who are genuine, you can see it, and those who are not, you can see it. Because how much are you risking? How diverse is your limitations of what's occurring? And pretty soon, I feel like there will be even more tensions because of how the Republican presidential candidates, they're all very anti-Islam, and they're all trying to get as much donations as they can for their campaigns, and the rhetoric they're spewing is very dangerous for us Muslims. So when we have a younger, like Mohammed Hijab isn't like old and fickle, but when we have a younger man like him out there, well-spoken, well-dressed, articulate, knows his deen, going against the media machine, putting his reputation on the line, job opportunities, all that stuff, you have to respect that. It's pretty much like a good hero. All of us will be tested privately and publicly for how we will defend the Ummah, and we still hold each other accountable, right? We all make mistakes and we hold each other accountable and we have internal disagreements. But when it comes to Palestine, what they're doing to them can easily be done to us. Think about how broken we are. We have the Uyghurs in China, the Rohingya Muslims. You have, subhanAllah, people in Palestine, people suffering in Yemen, people suffering in Syria. There's children being taken away in Sweden, right? The Muslim women in France not being allowed to wear the hijab and the abaya. Egypt and India banning the niqab. We are facing so much opposition that when we have somebody like Mohammed Hijab who comes out to the forefront, this is good, and we shouldn't shame the bold ones who step forward when everyone else is stepping back and putting their head down. And we may not always agree with everything someone does, right? It's impossible. But we don't throw away somebody really easy. And if somebody hasn't spoken up for Palestine and the suffering over there as much as Mohammed Hijab, in my personal opinion, they shouldn't criticize him too much for going up against that machine. I know some can think it's a little bit like a circus, but you do have to have a little bit of showmanship. Different styles for different contexts and occasions, and Mohammed Hijab has been adaptable to many different circumstances, hasn't he? Right? He's had debates. He knows how to go back and forth. But when you're going on Piers, they're trying to do gotchas. They're trying to clip you, get gotchas, and so many eyeballs are on that. So much pressure, right? So it's fantastic the way he held his points. He knew how to kind of toy with his opponent, and the opponent as well was firm with him. So it was equal. So no one can claim that Mohammed Hijab was bullying him or his opponent was not on the same level. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because they'll make excuses to say, oh, well, he wasn't as versed as Mohammed Hijab, so it wasn't really a fair match. Or they will try to find some loophole to justify the loss and to try to discredit the win that Brother Mohammed Hijab got. If it would have went on, it would have been even better. But some people might have wished that the brother got more points in. But you're going through it like a tennis match. They hit, you hit, you have to hold up the points. I hope I'm explaining this well. But as a bystander, right, as someone who's observing it, you can see what is happening there. Because when someone comes out guns blazing, sometimes you can't just be the cool one. It's like, oh, kumbaya. Sometimes you have to be like, yeah. You gotta know when to pull it back, and you gotta know when to push it forward. And he did that to the best of his ability, because we have to remember how we would feel in that position. And if he held his ground with a tough guy like that, tough as in somebody who is a bit more bombastic, you know, Ben Shapiro definitely doesn't want to mess with Brother Hijab. It would be career-ending. Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro wouldn't face someone like Brother Mohammed Hijab. Their own advisors would be like, listen, this isn't a guy you can intellectually outwit. This isn't a guy you can verbally dominate and humiliate. This isn't somebody who you can do sophistry with. So don't match him. Go for easy college targets. Go for blue-haired weirdos. Go for the soft targets, and that'll be your strategy for getting more views. Whereas with Brother Mohammed Hijab, he's coming on full force, okay? And I find that to be quite wonderful, quite refreshing. I'm probably going to rewatch it again. I liked it, you know. I like very serious and dry conversations, you know. I mean, I'm kind of dry a little bit myself sometimes, but there is some energy that has to happen, right? Because if you want to get people's attention, you can do it through showing the images. And also, Piers, towards the end, they started blurring the images he was holding up. So they got that little microchip or whatever in their ear, blur the images, and they didn't want people to see the actual sadness going on there. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? They're censoring the reality. They're making fake propaganda, which we can't even name. They're punishing content creators and people's jobs and shadow banning them and removing their comments. They're doing as much as they can with both soft and hard censorship to get people to shut up. So when you have Mohammed Hijab going full force, this is to break through all that duct tape. Just go out there. Because the room right now, it's almost like the tyrant is sitting on his throne. The entire court can see that the king has lost his mind. And there's all this air of doubt and confusion. And then someone finally just says what's happening. That type of energy is what's needed. And that's Mohammed Hijab is basically kicking down the doors of the throne room, marching in and declaring what's happening outside the castle walls. And the elites are trying to stuff their fingers in their ear and be like, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to know about the sadness. We don't want to deal with it. Or they secretly justify it. And now they want to call all the town callers and be like, don't talk about that news. Shut your mouth, or you'll be your head on a spike type of situation. So I have deep respect, even more so now, for what Hijab is doing. Because it's not easy. It's not easy. And may Allah reward him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide him. Protect him from the evil eye. And help him to keep doing what he's doing. His bravery. And I offer my prayers, and you should too. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.